John Rubino from DollarCollapse.com, and you're listening to Run to Gold.
Welcome back to the RunToGold.com podcast. This is episode 62. And because I have a lot of readers in the United States and Canada, and because a large portion of that demographic is Christian, I think that despite this being a mainly economic blog, I'd like to talk a little bit about the story of Christmas. There are actually a lot of free enterprise government and the role of wealth lessons contained within the story of Christmas. Let's start with one of the most famous phrases of them all. There's no room at the inn. Now, often this is invoked as being like cruel or mean. The innkeeper wasn't going to let the mother of Jesus and Joseph to stay in the inn, just barking at them, slamming the doors or something. But the fact of the matter is that the inns were full because the Roman emperor decreed that everyone was to be counted like livestock and then milked for their taxes. See, the inns were private businesses, and customers are their lifeblood. I mean, they don't want to turn away people, especially pregnant women. They'd much prefer to make a profit. One of these innkeepers actually had some charity. Now, what's interesting about this is that the innkeeper was actually able to let somebody stay in his private property in the inn. Imagine if an innkeeper tried to let a pregnant woman stay in the stable in California, for example. He'd probably get thrown in jail for violating some zoning ordinance. But instead, Jesus was able to stay in the stable and was born there. This shows the commercialization of Christmas clear from the beginning. And you know what? We don't even know the innkeeper's name. Isn't that interesting? But, that's the fate of all the merchants throughout all of history. They go about serving people as best they can in order to make a profit, and then their service is forgotten in the long annals of time, for the most part. But they do have their reward. They have their profit. Now, the room shortage was an unusual event. It was due to a market disruption from the emperor's decree that everybody should be taxed. Had there not been that governmental intervention, and had Mary and Joseph not been compelled to do the traveling in the first place, then Christ may have been born instead in much more comfortable circumstances. I mean, they came all the way from, I think it says from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth into Judea unto the city of David. Not to mention, Joseph had a huge opportunity cost. He had to leave his own carpentry business in order to bow to this government's coercive dictates to come and be counted and taxed like some cow. But let's move on. We have these three kings, or these three wise men, that journeyed also to find Jesus. And they ran into Herod, and Herod wanted to know where Jesus was, probably so he could tax him. But they could discern that Herod was a liar. And so they knew they couldn't trust Herod. He was just a typical political hack and couldn't tell the truth. So they got out of there as fast as they could. And what did these wise men bring to Christ, the King of Kings? Well, they brought him the ancient metal of kings. They brought him gold and frankincense and myrrh, the most rare items obtainable in the world. Surely they had a high price. And did they have to pay a gift tax on this, when they gave their private property to the King of Kings as a gift? No, they didn't have to pay a gift tax. And Christ didn't have to pay a tax for accepting it, or Mary or Joseph didn't. And so, there's nothing immoral about wealth. Wealth is actually something to be valued. It's to be owned privately, given and exchanged freely, according to people's own desires. Not to be stolen or taken coercively or aggressively. Now, the other thing that's interesting is the wise men found out about Herod's plan to kill Christ. And Mary and Joseph were advised by an angel to take the child and his mother and fly into Egypt. And so, in short, they resisted this government decree. So there's another lesson for us. The angels are on the side of those who resist government. When government is acting immorally and illegally and unconstitutionally and aggressing against agency, then the angels, the divine power, is on the side of those who resist such wicked governments, whether it's Herod or Hitler or Bush or Obama or whoever it is. So in the gospel narratives, we learn economic lessons about private enterprise, about the evil of government powers. Jesus used lots of commercial examples in his parables, whether it was the laborers in the vineyards or the parables of the talents, and he even has the ability to save such evil parasitic vampire squids as tax collectors. One of them even became one of his disciples, his apostles. So there we go. We see the role of private enterprise and the private market right from the birth of Christ in an inn all the way to his death, which is where the Last Supper took place before he was crucified, again, by the government. And so we have lots of things to be thankful for during this Christmas season. And the King of Kings, the Prince of Peace, may we also have this similar type of respect for other people's agency, in the sense that we don't steal or we don't kill and we don't lie. And these are the principles that we can take from the story of Jesus and Christmas. And I hope that this has been informative and that you've enjoyed it. And Merry Christmas, and especially on this Christmas Eve, may you all be blessed. And this has been the 62nd episode of the RunToGold.com podcast on New Year's Eve.
Hi, it's Ian Gordon from LongWayGroup.com, and you're listening to Run to Gold.